If you ask me right now, who's the most likely G5 team to make the playoff next year, because that's going to happen again, I would not say Boise State.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in this, the greatest sport on planet Earth. And it's brought to you today by our friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300. $300 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Ryan Day is in this spot, and nobody would have believed you about, I don't know, maybe a month ago or so, yet here we are. And how do they actually control the game against Notre Dame, which they're capable of? All coming up today, but I want to start with this consideration because I was singing this tune very early on this show, which is now 1 year old, by the way, so thank you all for supporting it. That there's going to be a Group of 5 team in the playoff every year because I think it's easy to just throw into the back of your mind and say, who's going to, someone was going to get. This year it was Boise State. Going into next year, right now, mid-January, I like Tulane. I like Tulane a lot. Two reasons that I like Tulane. Doesn't mean I love everything about the Green Wave, but reason number one is their head coach. John Sumrall, as Kurt Signetti would say, Google him. Google John Sumrall and look at what he's done. This dude just flat out wins. Willie Fritz was a great head coach for Tulane. Got them to the Cotton Bowl, beat USC. That might have been the biggest day in the history of Tulane's football program. They have quickly elevated themselves into realignment discussions. They've quickly elevated themselves into playoff discussions as a program, and they're keeping that momentum going. John Sumrall came over from Troy, and it was a pretty seamless transition. Now, they fell off at the end of the season, but there was a point in time where the Green Wave, who should have beaten Kansas State this year, if not for a late turnover by Darian Mensah at home against the Wildcats, there was a point, despite that loss, where they were ranked inside the college football playoff top 20. Then they faltered down the stretch. Now, to me, there's no shame in that. When you are a new head coach and you are working to implement everything, it's not going to be perfect right away. Look at Kalen DeBoer at Alabama. It wasn't perfect. It doesn't mean that there isn't a strong upward trajectory here. But Boise is a team that was very Ashton Jeanty centric. Now they have to learn how to operate without the Heisman runner-up. And yes, the Broncos returning 4 of their 5 offensive linemen will make them probably the favorites in the Mountain West, probably, and a legitimate college football playoff contender once again in the second year of the 12-team format and what I suspect would be the last of those seasons. Even though there is some depth and some options that have been brought in, including a transfer from Fresno State who has got some real promise, though, coming off an injury, there are options for Boise State in the running back room. Even with a returning, experienced, and talented offensive line, you can't replicate Ashton Jeanty. So now the onus falls much more heavily on the quarterback position. And if you watch Boise State's offense this year, I like Maddox Madsen. He's good. He's capable. That's never where Boise State wanted their offense to run through. Tulane, on the other hand, has got a guy who came in year one, had a young quarterback win the starting job. That's not what most people outside the program perhaps expected, but Mensah proved why. He's now the starting quarterback at Duke. And Sumrall came in and had a successful year one. And I think he's just a heck of a football coach. I think Spencer Danielson is a heck of a football coach. But Mensah was a key piece. I never felt like if he left, there would be suddenly this massive void. So his departure to me is less impactful than Jeanty's departure at Boise State. And you've got a great head coach. As for what Tulane's going to do at the quarterback position, this is going to be a great spring football battle. I mean, a great spring football battle. Do you understand? You probably don't. That's why I'm telling you here. Tulane's bringing in a 3-star quarterback in the 2025 class, Jay Beeman, 3-star guy out of Cleveland Central High School. They have also brought in not one, not two, but 3 transfer quarterbacks. Caden Simonza from Ball State, Donovan Leary from Illinois, and TJ Finley is still around. He's still around in college football. So I don't know how that position's going to look. Ty Thompson's probably going to wind up playing tight end instead of quarterback for the Green Wave. Make of that whatever you would like. He's a former 5-star recruit. Sometimes guys just can't figure out at that position. To me, that is not an indictment on John Sumrall. There were 2 other coaching staffs that had a chance to maximize Ty Thompson at the quarterback position, and they didn't feel like they were able to do it, and they never gave him a chance to start. In his one start in the Gasparilla Bowl, it was very ugly. So, Sumrall's a heck of a coach. That's the first thing. And the the departures rather, that people know for these programs favors the Green Wave to me over Boise State. Here's the second thing, though. Tulane has brought in 20 transfers total. 20. Oof. That's now 3 of them are quarterbacks, which leaves you with a mere 17 guys that are going to come in. They can't all start right away, or could they? I don't know. But Boise State is such an ingrained group of 5 Cinderella brand, something they have absolutely earned. Because for the last 2 decades, ever since that Fiesta Bowl win against Oklahoma, Ian Johnson, the Statue of Liberty, I don't think you can really overstate the importance of what that did for the Broncos football program in the long run. Because if you go outside of people who are diehard Mountain West college football fans or G5 fans or even just diehard college football fans, but the broader community, and I think this extends to the media as well, when you think Cinderella college football darling, you go to Boise State every single day of the week and twice on Saturday. So no Jeanty for the Broncos. Certainly plenty of experience. They've got to replace the receiver room, though, because they're losing just about all their top targets there. And then on the Tulane side of things, you've got a coach who's going into his second year. Now, Danielson was in his first full season this past year, which is why I think Danielson is a phenomenal coach. I think Sumrall is really, really good as well. And the American Conference is every bit as strong as the Mountain West. And either one of those conference champions has the ability to claim that G5 spot come 2025. And Tulane's going to be up there. And Tulane might have a tougher path to getting there. I mean, we'll see how Army's able to respond. It is hard for service academies to sustain success. But remember, that's the reigning American Conference champion. Army. Yeah, that Army. They lost to Navy, and I'm sure they'd rather flip those things around. But Jeff Monken just did one heck of a job this season. We'll see if that continues into next year as well. But you've got Ryan Silverfield over at Memphis that you've got to contend with. Thankfully, you don't have SMU anymore because they're off nearly winning the ACC in their first season in a Power 4 conference. There are plenty of good teams. I'd expect UTSA with Jeff Traylor has bounced back. Those are all options to win the American. But right now, I'd put my money on Tulane over Boise State as the favorite to make the playoff as the Group of 5 highest ranked conference champion. They might have a tougher battle, but I think that team with that coaching staff is going to be incredibly capable. I would like to see who they're starting at quarterback, to be sure. But those two teams right now, I wouldn't sleep on Memphis. I never would. But I'd look at those two, Tulane, Boise State, and say, those are probably your biggest G5 contenders going into 2025. If you think I'm crazy, and some people that don the orange and blue probably do, by all means, let me know in the comments below. Ryan Day's improbable run, it's just been something to behold, hasn't it? But Ohio State fans probably don't care one way or the other. First, a reminder, this episode brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. Plus, if you look at the national championship game and you sit, which we're going to talk about, and you say, I know exactly how this is playing out, you can benefit financially from that if you do happen to be right. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets at FanDuel.com. College football, they've got point spreads, they've got it. Money line, they've got it. point totals in the game, who's scoring a touchdown. They've got it all. Just check them out at FanDuel. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. How badly does Ryan Day need this victory? That might depend on who you ask, but seems like that Michigan game is a distant memory. Maybe not for Jay Stevens of Locked On Buckeyes and Jeff Hunt of Jeff Needs Sports as well. Joining me here, a couple of Ohio State aficionados, and Jay, I want to start with you. What if Ryan Day loses this game? What happens?
He still has a job. If Ryan Day in Ohio State loses the game, he still has a job. He did the same thing he did in 2020, got to the national championship, except this time losing to Notre Dame and not Alabama. The Alabama team was really, really good. Notre Dame is a team that's talented, but Ohio State's more talented than them. They have better. The coaching is going to be great from Ohio State's coaches. He still has a job. Like, that's my first thought right there is he still has a job. However, we will also circle back to the fact that Ryan Day is losing a big game to a team he should beat. It'll be the second time this year, if that happens, that he's losing a game to a team that he should beat. Both games will be big. Both games will be teams in the Midwest. It would also be a team that he's beaten the past couple of years in the regular season. That wouldn't look good. A loss wouldn't feel good, but he would still have a job.
Jeff?
Yeah, that's for sure. Of course, Jay knows how I feel. We're always, coincide. What Ryan Day has done is something unique here. He went from we would just love to have a playoff win to you've looked so good in the playoffs that now you're a failure if you don't win the fourth playoff game. We talked about it last week on Jay's show or on the post game show about how it's unique to play Notre Dame because of the location and because of the crosstown rivals and all these things. So, but what Ryan Day has done, honestly, he's bought himself probably as long as he wants in Ohio State without an absolute collapse. He's done a great job in these playoffs. I'm not going to say this if there's a loss Monday night. I'll be saying everything opposite. But a loss it would be super disappointing because we finally got to see what this team could do. And then if they don't do it one more time, we'll be like, oh, man, it was right there. And then we'll start reflecting. Spencer, you nailed it, though. The Michigan thing, it's in the past. It really is irrelevant now. Like, I mean that with all sincerity. So, yes, it will be super disappointing. But Ryan Day has showed us that he can get a team to where the potential is. He can beat teams that have equal talent, which Jeff has said for years now that he couldn't do. So he really has checked a lot of boxes, and this is the one big one left. And when you look at it in perspective, if you're not a nonsensical Ohio State fan like I am, you can realize that they've done a great job with this coaching staff. He's done a great job building the roster. And honestly, this is Ryan Day's team for the foreseeable future, especially with the 12-team playoff, moving forward.
I think Ryan Day has been great throughout the three games, but his coordinators have been arguably even better. Those are the play callers on this team. Remember, that was a pretty big storyline coming into the season. Ryan Day isn't calling plays. He's going to give it to Chip Kelly, who some people would want to say the game has passed him by. He's not any good. By the way, UCLA missed a bowl game without him, but that's neither here nor there. And Jim Knowles on the other side, I think has been a great hire from the moment he first got to Columbus. And Jay, it's kind of a contrarian move by Day to have such a veteran pair of coordinators. The trend nowadays is get the young up-and-comer who's going to recruit. Get the guy who... And I see the value in having those sorts of guys, but it seems like Brian Hartline offensively is that young up-and-coming coach who's the key recruiting figure. Ryan Day obviously is capable of recruiting well. Ohio State as a brand does recruit itself. And then once you get the talent that Ohio State has, that they've accumulated through the high school ranks, they've got plenty of NIL money and the portal as well. He's just handing this off to his veteran coordinators and saying, guys, let's just go win the football game. And I don't think there are that many places that embrace that sort of mindset because there's ageism in that sort of move of he's old, he's a has-been, he's a what. No, these guys are just really good.
They're really good, and this is kind of what you need with a veteran group of players. And you got a lot of guys, Will Howard and Jack Sawyer and Trevion Henderson, that have played a lot of football. Troy Malowau and Simon and Burke, Lathan Ransom. These guys have played a lot of ball. And they can see when they're talking to a guy that knows what he's talking about. They can see it, and they know when a guy has been there, he's done that, and they are very, very smart. I mean, Jim Knowles having to go down to the South to get Caleb Downs to come and transfer to Ohio State, and they talk about how it was a 3-hour meeting, and Jim Knowles was very, very nervous about going down to talk to a kid who was a freshman in college. That's not normal. And if you bring a young guy into this group of players, sometimes those older guys can realize, man, you don't know what you're talking about, or you haven't really been successful, or you don't have a resume that's something I should respect. You got to respect Jim Knowles' resume. You have to respect Chip Kelly's resume. And that's a big reason why I do believe Jim Knowles at the end of the day in that goal line stand was very, very comfortable calling a red zone coverage that he's never used before, because he knows how to push those buttons with those older guys on the field that sometimes a younger coach might not be able to do, because he doesn't have the experience to know, yeah, we ain't never done this before. It's a national semifinal game. I'm a little nervous. Jim Knowles is not nervous. He knows what he can do with these guys, and the veteran presence with the players. You kind of need a veteran coaching staff to kind of help these guys along the way.
Yeah, and Jay, I do want to highlight what that quote you alluded to from Jim Knowles, where he said, yeah, we'd never run that coverage before, and we just ran. That kind of feels like something a young, ambitious, not stuck in his ways coach would do. I heard that and went, you'd never done that before? I was amazed we even got that tidbit. Yeah. I mean, certainly he knows Marcus Freeman and his staff, who have done a great job over the last few weeks, can go and watch the film and realize, oh, they haven't done it before. They're going to see it too. But, Jeff, the conceding of play calling duties for Ryan Day and giving him over to Chip Kelly, I didn't think they were as sharp in the semifinals as they were in the Rose Bowl against Oregon. But overall, the big plays have been there. They have been good enough situationally in a game like the semifinal against Texas. And overall, you have to look at that Chip Kelly move and say, yeah, I know Ryan Day hired his old mentor, but boy, it seems to really work.
Yeah, and not to toot my horn or anything like that, but if you go back to the preseason shows, the one thing that this did was it allowed Ryan Day to become an in-game coach,
Yes, it did.
And that's really showed up. Spencer, I don't know, you probably don't watch the Buckeyes quite, as intently as like me and Jay would, just because of time constraints and your job and everything. But let me tell you, when we look up and it's the fourth quarter and we still have, let's say, 3 timeouts, or we have some clock management. I completely attribute that to like Days like, okay, Chip, like you do this, I'm going to trust you. I need to focus on the clock. I need to focus on the players coming off the field. Maybe they need a pep talk. Maybe they don't. Maybe I need to walk over to the offensive line. Maybe I need to have a word with somebody. It's allowed Ryan Day the time to do that. And kind of, it's been weird. I kept saying that Ryan Day couldn't, do on-the-job training with a program like Ohio State, but we've watched him do that in the last 2 months of football, and it's we'll see how it goes, but already it's been one of the most remarkable, transformations we've seen. Credit to Chip. And another thing about that, Ryan Day is able to build a coaching staff like this because he's at the pinnacle. This isn't a stepping stone job. He doesn't have to worry about, he's not trying to get another job. He's like, I'm at Ohio State. Like I can hire I'm already the head coach at Ohio State. So like, it doesn't matter who I bring in, I'm not worried about the next job or whatever. Ryan Day's got the next job. So he can hire whoever makes him comfortable, whoever he feels like this particular team, we're going to look back on 2024 Buckeyes. It's going to be a very unique, situation, Day and the coach. And let's just real quick throw out Larry Johnson out there, who's basically a fossil in college football circles. Whatever he's done or not done, or however him and Knowles have decided to work together to get this defensive line where it needs to be to work for Knowles defense.
I think the most improbable part of all of this that we haven't really seen before, and the 12-team playoff definitely allowed for it. No 12-team playoff. Ryan Day's job is still being discussed on this show instead of the potential of winning a national championship. But the improbable nature to me comes from just the bottoming out against Michigan. That is the worst game Ohio State played all year. It's the worst they could have played that day. It's the worst coaching job we saw in college football arguably all season. I think it was worse than Alabama losing to Vanderbilt. Or Ole Miss losing to Kentucky. Okay, I don't know. Kentucky.
That was bad.
That was so bad. But Alabama was at least on the road. Ohio State at home, Michigan, like the improbable nature. Can you imagine going up to a Buckeye fan in the middle of that game at halftime and saying, hey, you guys are about to play some awesome football. It's not going to be in these 2 quarters, but it's going to be when it counts. None of them would probably believe you. They would have looked at you cross-eyed going, what are you talking about? This is everything we've always come to fear. Day needs to be fired before this game ends. But that's where we have gotten to right now. Where we're getting to next is the game itself, Ohio State, Notre Dame. My confidence level in Ohio State might be higher than these guys just because there's that fan in them that doesn't want to allow them to be confident, and I get it. I don't have such reservations. I'll tell you why next. First reminder of this episode brought to you by PrizePicks, the place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings, PrizePicks has changed the game in daily fantasy sports. Whether it's the playoffs or the regular season, PrizePicks has made it easier than ever to win big while enjoying all the football action. Now, it's playoff time, and there's no better way to get in on the action than PrizePicks. Here's how it works. You simply pick more or less on at least 2 players. You can do more if you're feeling hot. And if your picks hit, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. That's right, 1,000 times your money just by making a few simple picks. So if you think someone's going dormant in a playoff game, you probably take them less than. If you think someone's about to pop off and have some Travis Kelce vintage kind of day, you pick them more. That's how PrizePicks rolls. Get ready to run your game this football season. Download the app today, not tomorrow, today, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 just for playing. Don't wait. Take your game to the next level with PrizePicks. Run your game. My confidence level is about a 9.9 out of 10 that Ohio State wins. My confidence level is about a 9.2 out of 10 that Ohio State covers a number. I think they're winning this game by double digits, guys. I have sung the praises of Marcus Freeman, and deservedly so. I think he has done the best coaching job of anybody in the playoffs, Ryan Day included, Chip Kelly, whoever. Marcus Freeman has been absolutely brilliant because I feel like he's doing more with less. He's a golfer who's shooting 5 under par, and he's got wooden clubs. That's great and all, but eventually prime Tiger Woods with the new gear and technologies rolling through, and he's going to just be better than you. And that's what I think Ohio State is in this spot because, Jay, Notre Dame's got a talented roster. I think it pales in comparison, particularly the gap in offensive talent between these two sides. I think Ohio State's defense is better than Notre Dame's, not by as much as the offense, but overall, I have a lot of faith in Ohio State in this game. What is your confidence level going into it?
It's pretty high, Spencer. It's pretty high. I talked to somebody recently.
Listen to the reservation as he says that. I don't think his words match what he's actually thinking. It's pretty high. Yeah, no, it's super high. I'm so confident.
Before I get to my comment, I was a fan just like Jeff in the game against Texas. Ohio State's up 21-14. And while Jack Sawyer's running the ball back, it was almost like Ohio State was taking the lead in my mind because that 7-point lead was not as strong as I thought it was going to be. And I'm thinking about it. Ohio State won by 14. It feels like a one-score win, but that's just how my mind works with Ohio State. I was talking to somebody recently about Ohio State and just them being in the national championship, and I said I didn't think Ohio State was going to get here. And this person's a coworker, their husband's a Notre Dame fan, and they were like, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah, I thought Ohio State was going to beat Tennessee and then lose to Oregon, Spencer. We talked about it. They ended up boat racing both those teams, running them off the field. And for Ohio State to be here now, I have confidence in the coaches. I have confidence in the players. There are 2 reasons why I kind of take a deep breath and sigh a little bit when I talk about my confidence. Ohio State can sometimes get in their own way, and they allow those things they allow those moments where they get in their own way to become adversity, and they struggle to get over those blocks, those mental blocks. There was no reason why Ohio State should not have been able to get over those self-inflicted wounds, the penalties that we talked about on the postgame show, but they did, and we saw the punter out there on the field way more than normal. If Ohio State does make boneheaded penalties once again that stall drives, I think Ohio State now is more prepared and equipped to get over those. Notre Dame's a good team. Just like Tennessee, just like Oregon, just like Texas. This is a really good team, a really good defense. Ohio State's more talented. If it was talent versus talent stuff on paper, Ohio State blows them out of the water. But it's not that. This is real life. This is 60 minutes of players laying it all on the field. I'm very confident Ohio State can win and that they will win. But as you all know, and Jeff, you know my fandom, since you know it pretty well too, it's the national championship. And this is for all the marbles. And my emotions are going to be crazy during the entire game just because it's how I live my life, man.
My confidence is as high as it could possibly be, especially knowing me. I'm infamous for like at work. They're like, okay, you have to choose sides. The loser's going to buy lunch. I chose Notre Dame. You know why? Because I'm certainly not going to watch Ohio State lose this game and then buy lunch for somebody. Like, that's the kind of thing we're talking about. But I'm honestly like, I'm pretty confident. I know that if both teams played 100%, Ohio State wins. Both teams played 50%, Ohio State wins. Jay just touched on the mental part. He's completely right about that. Probably the one thing that gets in my way. I'm not gonna dismiss what Notre Dame's done. I've seen them play 3 games, 3 completely different situations, 3 completely different type of teams, and adjust. That was the thing. When I saw them adjust to Penn State in the second half, the first half of that game, I'm like, okay, I hope we play Notre Dame. The second half of that game, I'm like, ooh, okay, this is a whole different animal here. So if a team and a coaching staff can rally the troops like that and get the players going, and then we're talking about a national championship game to where, let's say imaginary Ohio State's up 21, it's not going to matter because Notre Dame's like, this is it. Like, you know what I mean? We're not playing for style points. And then that's a dangerous animal. So yeah, I'm probably a 7 out of 10 for Ohio State, but I mean, I'm also, scared, really.
Yeah.
I'm nervous.
Yeah.
I'm nervous. This means a lot. And also, just real quick, I lived through 2006, so I know how this can go.
Don't bring that up.
I'm just saying.
No, this ain't Florida though. Like, Notre Dame's not Florida. Like, they're not that caliber of team. They don't have those kind of dudes.
That'll never leave my mind, Jay. Like, that night will never leave my mind.
Bringing up so many bad memories, Jeff.
I didn't do that, by the way. I just wanted to point that out. That wasn't me. That's not me jabbing at the Ohio State guys. By the way, Jeff, I could feel you remembering that this is a G-rated show in the middle towards the end of that rant. Always. I was like, don't do it. Never. He remembers. Never. Good. So for Ohio State, Jay, and this goes back to the Texas game, I think their biggest key is they have to stay out of their own way. Yeah. I mean, what is it? Oh, yes. Punch a guy in the face mask. Don't do that.
He punched the wrong guy. I went back and watched that today. He punched the wrong player. He was so frustrated.
Well, now it's doubly bad.
Yeah, you made it worse.
That's even worse. So don't do things like that. Yeah. Don't flinch before the snap. Don't force the ball where it doesn't belong. Some interceptions are, hey, that DB made a heck of a play. That's not what that interception was from Will Howard. It was, dude, where are you throwing the football? What you did? Don't do those things. If you avoid that and take whatever the Notre Dame defense is able to give you, which might not be a lot because they are incredibly well coached and well schemed and talented amidst the injuries. They have been really, really impressive on that side of the ball. But to me, whether or not this game is entertaining for casual fans comes down to Ohio State. I don't think they can Georgia TCU this, but if Ohio State plays to their full potential, I do fully believe that the Buckeyes will start to hang the banners and start the party midway through the third quarter.
I'm right there with you. If they just do what they're supposed to do and play their brand of football, be creative on offense, don't try to prove you're tough and do all the things that can be man-made, human-made own mental blocks in a game, this game should just be an Ohio State win by double digits. And I still think it's going to be. Even if they do those things that are boneheaded mistakes, Ohio State's talented. The adversity they've gone through this year, from even before the Oregon loss, there were some things Jeff and I talked about on the show where talking about the Buckeyes defense where, yeah, they're only giving it 7 points or 14 points, but there might be some issues down the road. They really didn't have those issues consistently. Yes, outside of that, outside of the Oregon game, those issues did not come up at all. They figured out some things to move things around, re-engineer some things. That Nebraska win, I think, is a very big thing for this team, having to overcome some adversity. The Michigan loss helped them out. Going and having Tennessee fans come into the shoe, that's adversity in and of itself, because you're like, why aren't there more Buckeye fans? This team has found ways to overcome so much adversity to get them to this point. And Emeka Buka made a big statement before the game against Texas. He's like, this ain't going to be my last game. My last game is going to be on January 20th. And these guys all year have been working for this moment. Yeah, a loss to Oregon, a loss to Michigan. They still were in the playoff, and they still had a shot to accomplish the ultimate goal in college football, which is to win a national championship. If they do what they're supposed to do, there's nothing Notre Dame can do to stop this team.
Yeah, shout out playoff expansion there. Joel Klatt on his podcast the other day said in his ideal world of college football, 14-team playoff, and I just about I don't know, threw up on my keyboard. But anyway, Jeff, biggest things Ohio State's got to do in this game?
Oh yeah, of course, everything you guys already talked about, the mental stuff, but honestly, like not get stuck in like a game plan, like be able to adjust very quickly. They're going to come out if they try to run them, like, we saw the worst case of it against Michigan, where they're like, oh, we're going to run the ball on them and show them how tough we are. And it failed and they wouldn't back off from it. If somebody's open, throw it. If going wide works, do it. If whatever works, if Will Howard has to run for 200 yards, you have to do it. I mean, the defense speaks for itself. I mean, let those guys, react and do their thing. Let Caleb Downs, kind of do whatever he wants out there. But it really is adjust quickly. Do not get stuck in, do not get stuck in the mud, for too long, and let Notre Dame, stay in it and get that running game going and get the momentum going. Remember, trust your athletes, trust the recruiting, trust the NIL money. Every advantage that Ohio State has, just trust it and just go out there and relax. And just one quick point, getting to this game, there's a chance that it might have taken some pressure off of Ohio State, because they're like, whew, this is where we were supposed to be. Everything's good now. Now we just got to play one game. So there's the off chance that this is a really relaxed, dangerous Ohio State team.
Jay Stevens, Jeff Hunt, I feel like you guys are trying to talk yourselves into being confident, but don't worry, I'm confident for you going into the national championship game on Monday. Appreciate it, guys. I will see everybody next time. Thanks for listening. Until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.